All right, let's light the cigarette and talk. So, Gamer Dad kind of chiming in a little bit here. So, I like the changes I'm seeing. It took me a little bit to find what people were referencing because I don't have Discord, I don't do social media. It's work, play, family, the usual shit that we have to deal with. Work, honey-do list, take care of the kids, play games. So, I like that they heard us. That all of us got together and voiced our concerns about the changes being put out there so last minute and the time frame that they brought up. I'm happy for our UK player base that they've extended it, and I hope this creates a time period after their bank holiday where they can get in and get their skill points for the ones that have opted in and are doing the expedition. Now, now that I found it, you know, gives us all the way up until the 11th of May, which is great. It's absolutely great. That gives us time to experience the Riventides update on the 28th, see the new arc, see what type of damage numbers we put up on that, go through any of the new quests that we've got with all of our gear. So that's going to better help us hit these numbers. So this is a win for us, the player. And it should also be a sign to Embark, hey, let's give as much detail as possible. In a timely manner. Let's stop doing this last minute bullcrap and get as much out there. Because you and I both know they had the number in their head when this blog post came out on the 17th. They just chose to exclude the information. Now, I don't know if that was a human decision or an AI decision. Because they've admitted a lot is AI with them. But a human should be proofreading some of this stuff and thinking to themselves, if I am Joe Consumer and I'm reading this, what questions does it bring? Because news that just creates more questions than answers creates more pain points. And you're at the point where players are walking away. They're pissed off, they're irritated that they're not getting the information that they should be getting from the get go, and they're going to other stuff. They're going back to other games. They're going to new games that are constantly coming out. So you are hurting your player base and hurting your potential profit margins by not being forthcoming with the information. Like, I don't know about you, but if I read this on the 17th and I saw this key part right here, the damage figures, which that was something I brought up to someone in my comments section. They said, well, the details for the expedition have been put out there. And my response to them was, yes, they told us what was expected of us, but not what is required of us. 100,000 damage is relatively easy to do. Sure, for a good chunk of players, your casuals, it's going to take a few matches to hit that 100K. But if you're somebody who's all gung ho and you're like, okay, I know my numbers, I've been sitting on equalizers, I've been sitting on Jupiters, and I've wanted a reason to use them, that's going to make you bring that stuff in. And you'll go after the queen heavier with your good shit instead of kind of free kitting and hitting it with a pharaoh and doing no damage. You're going to go and you're going to hit that number, and then you're either going to go after the people that are going for the damage, or you're going to be there helping people. Our player base is both sides of the coin. You have your PvP and you have your PvE. You're going to hit this score, this 100,000 damage, quicker going after the arc. The numbers for that do not lie. Players don't respawn into matches after a certain time. And I think somebody crunched the numbers. You'd have to take out like 1,000 players to hit 100,000 damage. And I don't even know if that number sounds right. I've been awake too fucking long to do the math. And I'm not going to do that math anyway. I'm just going to go in and play the game and watch. Because I am hoping when the update hits on the 28th, they add a progress bar to it. Kind of like they did before with the money. You know, you had your little tick marks for each skill point. This way I can go in, go after some bastions, go after some rocketeers, see my total damage. Another thing that they don't have in here is whether or not this resets on death. Now, I'm seeing people referencing comments on Discord that it is not resetting at death. That you can go in, get your damage, it's all going to count, and win, lose, or draw, if you get knocked out for whatever reason, that number will continue to grow, which only makes it easier for us to hit that 100,000 if it works out that way. And we have to say if it works out that way because Embark has this track record of saying something is going to happen in a specific way, and then when it comes to actuality, it doesn't happen that way. We can all easily reference last week's trials. The trial clearly stated, search supply drops. And you only got points towards the trial for calling it in. I don't know about you, but that's part of the reason why I dropped out of Hotshot and I'm now in Daredevil 3. You worded it one way, you got the points for doing a completely different thing. Those actions are related because you can't get the supply drop without calling it in. But if it was search, just like with search containers in Bluegate, search containers in Stella Montes Medical, if that supply drop was already on the playfield, you would have gotten points whether you called it in or not. But it didn't work that way last week. So as long as it doesn't reset upon player knockout, we're all able to get this, which is a good thing. It's something that is relatively easily obtainable within a few raids. And even though they put this here, you know, approximately the equivalent of destroying 20 bastions. So you go in, you get lucky, bastions respawn every 8 to 10 minutes depending on the map condition. You can get in there and get these points. It's going to take you multiple rounds, but over the course of the few days that we've got, we can make that happen. You know, like I said before, dad gamers know how to grind, and we could make it happen. This opens it up to everybody. You know, we should all be able to easily hit that 100,000 if you're still one of those people that wants to do the expeditions. Because the argument is also there that the expeditions are not worth it. You know, with what we get for the expedition, I for one don't need extra stash space. Extra stash space means I hoard onto more blueprints. Random extra ones that I don't need. I can use the skill points. I don't really see a huge difference. But this isn't going to continue on for much longer. They have said it themselves. They don't want us to be able to completely fill up the skill tree. So who knows if skill points are even a factor at Expedition 5, 6, or 7. I'm pretty sure it's still going to be in Expedition 4. But after that, what's going to be that special thing that makes you want to do the expedition? You know, we also, 2 out of these 3 don't make a difference at all. You know, the XP boost does not help you. You know, once you hit level 75, that XP boost is null and void. You don't progress any further. Sure, you're going to keep seeing XP, but you can't go any higher than 75, so it doesn't make a damn difference anyway. You just hit level 75 slightly quicker. Scrappy hasn't worked with a noticeable boost in any of the expeditions so far. I don't know about you, but when I get in, play a raid, I'm usually seeing still between 8 to 10 items added to the pool that's waiting for me to collect. The only thing that I do notice and care about is this repair bonus. But I don't see that going up more. I could see it going to 90%, which that would kind of be in line with Expedition 4 being when they stop giving us skill points and the repair boost. Because it doesn't make sense to have a 100% repair value increase unless they're going to go 95 and cap it there. But then you're still going to lose it when you choose to no longer do it anymore, and those bonuses reset. So I don't know what they're going to do at Expedition 5. But it's going to have to be something decent. But when we cycle back to this, as far as my 2 cents as Joe Consumer, if this would have been here on the 17th, I think you would have had less of an outcry. You still would have had the outcry from our players in the UK just because that 5-day window, once again, is in this holiday. But they did the right thing. They listened to us, they heard us, they extended it, and then finally released the numbers 5 days later. So I think a takeaway that Embark could have from this situation is stop leaving out the relative, very important details that we need to know. Because even in this blog post here, this news note, whatever you want to call it, you don't have whether or not it resets. You don't have whether or not this acts like a trial. And that's still causing confusion. So you are giving us information, and instead of answering questions, you are bringing new questions to the table that don't have to be here. Be clear and concise in your news and updates so that everyone can understand. I was once in a training class leading an environment, and I told them, if you are presenting the answer to the question thinking that the person you are talking to is at the same level of like a 9 or 10-year-old, you want to make it so that you're answering their question completely and not opening that door to continue asking more questions to create more pain points. You can't just go, well, it was in the terms and conditions. Just come out with it. Be like, this is what it is. You have to have your caravan full with all the random stuff that we're going to ask you to put in through all the first pages. Then you need to do 100,000 damage across players, arc, outside of the practice range, and have it count. You have the base requirement, you have the next requirement for the skill points being that 100,000 damage, but you also need to add in the other key detail. Do I have to exfil out of the match? Because I don't know about you, but if I have to have that exfil requirement, I could go in with hatch keys, a bunch of decent items, take out a couple bastions real quick, hatch out, load back in. And I can do that over and over again until I hit that 100K. So you need to improve on the way that you relay the information. Those key details that we all want to know in order to keep us doing these expeditions. Transparency matters in this day and age. So the more transparent and forthcoming you are with the information, the better it's going to be for not only you but us. As a company, as a business, your goal should be to alleviate pain points. No pain points mean happy customers. Happy customers keep playing and using your product. If something creates a pain point for one person, there's a good chance there's a lot more people that also have that same pain point, but they don't have the means or want to express it. Not everyone has the ability to hop onto Reddit or to hit record on their OBS and record something to put out there publicly for everyone to see and chime in on. Some people keep to themselves. They're just going to deal with it and move on to something else when those pain points add up to be way too much. And if you scroll YouTube right now, you'll find lots of videos from content creators saying why they're not doing the expeditions anymore or why they're moving on to a different game. You want to keep us here. You want to keep us happy. You want to keep us buying your product. By that, at this point, it's the skins. The skins are where you make your money. If we look at another game, a game that probably didn't have a 10-year plan, Dead by Daylight has existed for an extreme period of time. And if you look at my name, you can kind of figure out that's where I came from. I played a lot of Dead by Daylight. How they continue to make their money is in the updates, in their DLCs, in their cosmetics. The cosmetics that they sell is what increases their revenue. That's what is their cash flow. Now, granted, there's pain points with that, and there's reasons why content creators leave, but that's a story for a different time. But you can use them as an example. They are providing information. They are doing their YouTube streams, they're doing their Twitch streams. They get information out there. They're pretty transparent with it, even though they don't always listen to their player base in the way that they should. You're already ahead of them by listening and being proactive. You just need to improve slightly, and you're going to be hand over fist better than them. So give us our information quickly. Be as detailed as you can so that it doesn't create confusion. And we're going to be happy. So with that, that's my 2 cents. And if you agree with me, let me know. If you don't, like I said before, tell me how I'm wrong. But I'm pretty sure the things that I'm bringing up here, a lot of us can relate with and agree with. I'll catch you later.